The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio
Welcome
audience.
to a new year of the Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon.
And I don't know if it shows our name, but I'm not James. I'm Andrew. I forgot to change it.
And we're going to be doing something a little bit different this week. We're going to be going over some of the movies we saw in 2022 in order to, celebrate what that was and ranking them based off our, the best things that we saw. We're going to do this starting with our honorable mentions, and then we're going to move forward down from 5 to 1. So should be a nice long one, hopefully, with all the good stuff we have to talk about. And I think I'll start off by talking about my honorable mention, Psycho Gorman. So, intergalactic assassins converge on a small town after two siblings unwittingly resurrect an ancient alien overlord. So, the reason why I can't put this on my list anywhere else is because technically this didn't release in 2022. It's a movie that came out in 2020. I just saw it now. So I figured it'd be kind of unfair to put it on this list with all the other ones. That being said, this was definitely one of the funniest movies I saw this year. As a concept, essentially, two children being taking control of Darth Vader is a very funny idea. And I really liked how they executed this. I loved the aesthetic of the film, especially the costumes. They were absolutely amazing. All the characters are very funny, even the children, which I think is it's a very rare that you get that from child actors. Ones that feel kind of real and also very funny. So major props to them. The guy playing Psycho Gorman was absolutely perfect. I don't think you could do a better job of playing that kind of character. And whoever wrote that character also did an absolutely amazing job. Because the way they would constantly set up Psycho Gorman being this really cool space warrior, killing people and absolutely slaying them. And then the children interrupting him to do the most inane, stupid things ever was perfect. So I love this movie. I wish I could actually put it on my top 5. But again, it did come out this year, so it would be a bit unfair to do that.
Mine's a little different. All the movies that I saw this year that didn't come out this year, I think were in my bottom 10. So my honorable mention is just my 6th favorite movie of the year, which is The Black Phone. After being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, a 13-year-old boy starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. And while I'm not a fan of horror movies, I do love a good thriller. And this movie was definitely more thriller rather than horror. There was a couple jump scares that got me a couple of times, I will admit. But this movie definitely kept me on the edge of my seat for most of the movie. And Guy Ritchie was great in this movie playing the bad guy or the masked child killer, if you will. And good, it was good supernatural aspect to the film. It was also the first date that I had with the girl I was dating this year, so
there you go.
Kind of gets thrown up in there for that too. So yeah, while it was not in my top 5, it definitely does deserve the honorable mention, just because it was good. It was a really good thriller. It kept me on the edge of my seat, and it made me jump a couple of times, which is not hard to do, but yeah.
Absolutely perfect. And with that, I think we'll move on to our top 5. My 5th one was a movie that I was very excited to see based off the concept when it first came out, and that is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So, unfulfilled and facing financial ruin, actor Nick Cage accepts a $1 million offer to attend a wealthy fan's birthday party. Things take a wildly unexpected turn when a CIA operative recruits Cage for an unusual mission. Taking on the role of a lifetime, he soon finds himself channeling his most iconic and beloved characters to save himself and his loved ones. I think this one speaks for itself. It's just a very funny concept of Nicolas Cage playing himself in a movie, especially not playing a very what's the word for a high and mighty version of himself, but him at his lowest low.
Yeah.
It's such a good concept, and the perfect like kind of actor to do this with. I don't think you could do this with many other kinds of actors because it just doesn't fit them right. But Nicolas Cage has that perfect level of like, he's good at acting, but he's also incredibly hokey and he'll do anything. Like for example, there's that Willy's Wonderland movie that he did. I think that was also this year too, which a mess of a movie, but. So it works very well on that level. Love the concept. I also love the approach of doing it as like an action buddy comedy film with Pedro Pascal, because he also did a very good job of playing like the drug lord like millionaire, the soft drug lord millionaire, which was a very good angle to take that character. Not giving him too much like a hard edge, but like when he really needed it, going right for it.
He's had a hell of a year, and he's about to kick off at the start of another year too with The Last of Us coming out on HBO. Pedro Pascal. But this was the only movie that I actually saw that's on your list.
Yeah.
And you said something in your description there about Nicolas Cage playing just really wacky roles. Did you see the trailer for Redfield coming out where he plays
what is that?
crazy jacked up Dracula?
Oh, what the heck?
I'll send you the trailer. You don't see Dracula until the very end of the trailer. And I was watching it. I was like, is that Nick Cage? And it is Nick Cage, and it looks crazy.
So, but exactly going back to that, and that's why he works so well in this role. And essentially being able to play off Pedro Pascal worked really well for him, because it's almost like these two are kind of learning more about themselves as they interact with each other. Nicolas Cage kind of learning to appreciate the life he has and like be more involved with the people he's with, and Pedro Pascal kind of learning to stand up for himself, and be this more empowered person. I will say the reason why it's number 5 and not a bit higher is as a concept, like besides Nicolas Cage playing himself, it's not the most unique movie out there. It's definitely conceptually a little more box standard, but I do like the idea of Nicolas Cage being himself, and overall the movie was very enjoyable. I had a very good time watching it. So definitely number 5 for me. I think it definitely belongs on this list somewhere.
My number 5 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of King T'Challa. Now, this can't be a list of mine if it didn't include at least one Marvel film from this year.
I would imagine that is half the list of movies you saw.
No, it's actually not. There's only
really?
there was only 3 Marvel movies this year that came out in theaters. And this one was by far the best one of the year. The other I ranked all my movies I saw. The other 2 are actually down in 13 and 14. So they just barely made the top 15 cut. But performances by Angela Bassett, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for this movie. Winston Duke, Latita Wright, and Tina Huerta definitely throw this movie up in the top 5. It was the longest movie I saw this year. I think it's clocked in at like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something. It's longer than Endgame, but it did not feel like it was long. It didn't feel drawn out. It didn't feel like there was times where this movie could end just at any point. Like it kept me involved and it kept me intrigued. And paying respects to the loss of Chadwick Boseman at the beginning of this film basically put a tear in every single person's eye in this theater with how they handled it. And then with the Marvel logo coming up, all with scenes of Chadwick Boseman playing Black Panther in complete silence instead of your typical Marvel fanfare. Definitely class act by Marvel, which definitely deserves maybe not, it's definitely not higher than 5 for me because I did see better movies this year, but definitely worthy of being in the top 5 at number 5 for me.
Gotcha. All right. So for me, number 4 was The Banshees of Inisherin, which I think I've realized I've been saying that name wrong, but I don't actually know how to say the actual name. So too late for this now. On a remote island off the coast of Ireland, Podrick is devastated when his buddy Colm suddenly puts an end to their lifelong friendship. With help from his sister and a troubled young islander, Podrick sets out to repair the damaged relationship by any means necessary. However, as Colm's resolve only strengthens, he soon delivers an ultimatum that leads to shocking consequences. So this one was very memorable to me because it was very different from the other comedies I saw in that the premise was extremely simple. It is two dudes getting into a tiff over their friendship, essentially. That's kind of it. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot you can do with that, but they really explore kind of like the philosophies of both these characters in the most absurd, funny way possible. Because as we find out, Colm's whole ultimatum is that if you don't stop talking to me, I'm going to cut my fingers off. Which is just so absurd and out there. And then even more wild when he does it. And you're just like, what? What is wrong with this person? But I'll get into that a little bit later because it kind of goes more so into his philosophy on life. Again, it's also very funny in a drier sense, but it also brought a lot to the table. The cinematography was absolutely amazing. And I loved it because it was so beautiful in order to contrast all the vile things these two people were doing to each other, which I thought was a really nice touch. And I'm not sure that's what they were going for, but it feels like that's what they were going for. So I love that. Solid performances from the entire cast, especially Brendan Gleeson as Colm and Colin Farrell as Podrick. These two men were perfect, acting like two people that like kind of hated each other, but like to a certain point also wanted to get back together and be friends again. And I loved how small the stakes were for this movie. Like I said, it's just one friend saying, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And ending a friendship. Like, it isn't the world's at end or anything like that. It's like their small bubble is being burst. And it's them dealing with the consequences of what's happened there. So I love that. I love like that small little movie and a small little story that can be explored from here. And it was really nice to see like this intimate story take place on the big screen, especially watching how the two philosophies of this men kind of like clash on camera. With Colm's philosophy kind of almost being like, I'm realizing like there's more life behind me than there is ahead of me, and I want to leave something behind in the world. And talking with this other dude doesn't get me any of that. So it's almost taking like this extreme approach to, I want to create something and put it out there, and I cannot have any attachment to anyone else. And Podrick's approach, which is like, life is worth living because of the people you meet around you, where it's like, I want to be alive because I am friends with Colm and friends with all these other people, and they make my life interesting and fun as a result of that. So it was very fun watching those two kind of things play out and how they kind of play into how horrible they are to each other. So definitely number 4. Again, it wasn't like the funniest movie I saw this year, and it didn't have, I don't know. It wasn't as good as my top 3, I think, are the best way of putting it. So number 4 seemed like a good fit to put this movie at.
It's really funny that those went back to back, the movie, the Banshees of Inisherin and Black Panther, in when we talked about it, because it was the same video.
Really?
It was the same. That. It was the same. I mean, mine was
funny.
at 5 and yours was at 4, but it was the same thing that we talked. Like, it was the same video that we talked about.
Gosh.
So that's actually kind of funny.
Which episode? Well, now I gotta find out which.
It was
episode
recent.
That was.
It was really recent.
That was a banger. Apparently.
It was a month ago. So
yeah, 36.
36. Yeah.
So watch 36 then if you want a good episode.
My number 4 is Don't Worry, Darling. Mm-hmm. 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. And while I did have a feeling that I knew something in the world of Don't Worry, Darling was wrong, I was not prepared for the Black Mirror style ending to this movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you had seen this movie yet.
No.
But that's the best way to describe this type of ending. The twist and performances by Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, and Chris Pine put this movie into my top 5. The way that this movie is set up and the controversy behind this movie, like so much was talked about it between Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles and Chris Pine and Florence Pugh and like all the big name stars of this movie, that there was just something wrong with it. And I just kind of threw all that out the window and was like, I just want to go see this movie because it looks it looks interesting. Like, I'm interested to see it. I did not expect it to be into my top 5 at all of my favorite movies, but because of the thriller style of movie, and like I said, that Black Mirror style of ending to it, it just tripled in like how much I like this movie, because I love Black Mirror, like Black Mirror style twists to movies like that is great. And this movie was well and beyond my expectations. It was a little slow at the beginning, I'll admit, but by the time like the second act was ending, it was when it really ramped up, and it really kept me guessing almost the whole time until it got to the very end. And even at the end, when it kind of does like a little flashback sequence, you're just like, wait, what's happening now? Where am I? So that being said, definitely go watch it. All of my movies, I think, are on streaming services. 3 of them, I think, are on HBO Max. So you can go watch them. Definitely check it out. Like, especially if you like that thriller style, where you did not see this coming, because this is definitely that movie.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. All right, number 3 for me was definitely one of the cutest movies I have ever seen in my entire life, which was Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. So, Marcel, a 1-inch tall shell, lives with his grandmother, Connie, the only residents of their town after their neighbor's suddenly mysterious disappearance. When discovered by a guest amongst the clutter of his Airbnb, the short film he posts online brings Marcel millions of passionate fans and a new hope of reuniting with his long-lost family. So not only was this the cutest movie I think I might have seen in a very long time, it also almost made me cry. So I was very emotional watching this, so I think the movie did a good job of bringing emotions out of me, which I'll give it props for. I also loved it as this very touching coming-of-age story. And this particularly comes from how well the voice actors for Marcel and his grandmother played the characters, because they did such a good job of making me feel like they were real people, like that they weren't just stop motion creatures that were being puppeted live on screen. They felt real, which major props to them. That was fantastic. The model design and stop motion was also super on point. Like, all of their movements felt super real, and it felt super, especially realistic for the world, and very believable. So that was super fantastic. The creatures also worked well in the medium to bring a lot of life into this world, with like the various different like little characters that would show up, and how Marcel and his grandmother like interacted with the world around them. Like, they did a good job of visualizing like how would they get out to a garden to grow food for themselves? How would they eat? How would they clean themselves? Like, all that kind of stuff. So major props to them. Also a super unique concept, like bringing back this random viral web series from 10 plus years ago. Definitely seemed like it could be a stretch, and I remember being very worried for the first 15 minutes that it would kind of just be, the movie would just be a rehash of that web series. But they did a really good job developing the characters into something more. And I love this as a return of this like old school internet thing. And I also loved, the return to style, how they didn't change how it was shot from that documentary angle. I thought that was really fantastic, and it was really cool how they kind of, again, built the world around that documentary style. So we're only really seeing whatever this dude decides to film on that given day, you know? It's not like we're getting like all these shots of all these different things that they're doing. It's just whatever he happened to get with the camera, you know? Which I assume must have been a huge portion of the planning for this movie. So yeah, conceptually, such a cool idea. It's extremely well executed. Definitely give it a shot if you haven't seen it yet.
Nice. My number 3, kind of an original concept, is The Menu.
Yes.
A young couple travels to a remote island to eat at an exclusive restaurant where the chef has prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises. Another thriller, but with a twist that I thought I knew what was coming, but was surprisingly caught off guard. Very similar to Don't Worry, Darling. Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy pull off amazing, thrilling, and comedic timing in this fresh take on an original story by writer Will Tracy. This movie is fantastic. The way that they set up each course to be like you're watching like a Food Network type of show where they announce the course and then they show, like, you know how they show like a close-up view of the dish, and they have like the ingredients listed on the side of the screen in text. They did that for every dish. They, you know, the fact that Nicholas Holt's character is so just oblivious to everything that's going on, and he's just happy being there eating the entire time, was actually like kind of funny. Like, 'cause he's like, things are happening in this restaurant that are not supposed to be happening, and he's just kind of like, do you think the chef hates me? And it's just like, it's like, what, bro, read the room. Like, but yeah, I thought this was kind of like an original story, which I guess it is, because it
Definitely.
or an original script rather, because like I'd never heard of something like this, but I guess it was a story that was written by one of the writers of the movie. So it's adapted for a adapted screenplay.
Definitely, compared to most movies that are coming out these days.
But
it feels
no,
like a very
definitely an original concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely very original. And as soon as I saw trailers for it, I was like, I have to go see this movie. Like, this movie looks awesome. And that's how I always perceive, like, if I want to go see a movie or not, is I like watching the trailer. And this movie immediately caught my eye, because I was like, oh, this looks like a tremendous like thriller type of movie where they're gonna be like hunting the guests, like kind of like Most Dangerous Game type of scenario. And that did not happen. And it was definitely more crazier than that. And crazier, I mean, like, in like, these people are insane. But kept me on the edge of my seat. If you want me to sit in a movie and keep me entertained, keep me on the edge of my seat, and keep me guessing, because this movie, the last movie, and my honorable mention, all three of those movies did that for me this year. So, but this one was the best. This one was actually my best not my best thriller, but this was my most favorite comedy type of movie of the year, just because it has that element to it, with Ray Fiennes kind of being the comedian, but kind of being a little bit more serious too. So
Gotcha. All right, so for getting to number 2, I want to preface something before I get to this. For me, at least, I had a very hard time choosing between 2 and 1, because to me they were both very good movies that I saw this year.
So
I almost think they could be interchangeable depending on, honestly, even my mood, or like how, if I were to watch them again, like they're both excellent movies. I will say number 2, I think not quite as good. Just a little bit there, but for different reasons, definitely. And for number 2, I had Jordan Peele's new movie, Nope. So, a man and his sister discover something sinister in the skies above their California horse ranch, while the owner of a nearby theme park tries to profit from the mysterious otherworldly phenomenon. I saw this movie, I think, at least twice in theaters. I loved this movie. I love the concept of bringing back UFO movies, because that's, like I mentioned in the episode this time, that is not something we've gotten in a very long time. I loved the intermingling of that concept with like a Jaws style movie. That was really cool and original, because I don't think we ever get abduction movies that are like that, where it's like something is hunting you. That's horrifying. Something beyond your comprehension, like chasing you down and trying to like murder you. Which, wild concept. I loved how they executed it. Did such a good job with that. Fantastic performance, of course, by all of Jordan Peele's favorite actors. Like, the dude he's got his casting on point at this point. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing. Fantastic cinematography, especially with the way the UFO is shot. Like I said, the Jaws style, where it's like you don't get a lot of the UFO in the sky, but you get just enough to know that it's there and it's hunting you. fantastic way to approach that. And again, I love sci-fi. I like horror to a degree. Sci-fi horror is just a great way of doing this. I didn't talk about this as much at the time because I was a little kind of confused as to what Jordan Peele's what's it called theme for this movie is. Like, what is he trying to discuss in here? And the more I ended up seeing a couple of reviews by other reviewers on it, and the consensus seems to be he's kind of talking about how like Hollywood chews people up and spits them out, especially with blending in like the Gordy the chimpanzee storyline, which is essentially this TV show that happened in the 80s that unfortunately led to the tragic death of 2 people, I think, as Gordy the chimp went crazy on set. And I loved how that theme also blends really well into the story of the movie itself. Because you start the movie off and you're like, why are we following this weird incident that happened in the 80s with this chimpanzee? How is this connected at all to the story? But then you slowly start getting the pieces of it. You find out that, for instance, the owner of the owner of the nearby theme park, he was actually the kid that was in that show. It was like a sitcom style show. And Gordy didn't kill him. That's his famous like that's his claim to fame, essentially, is that he survived this chimp attack, and how that kind of affects him as a character and affects how he views the UFO. And then you're kind of getting these pieces, and then somewhere in the middle of the movie, it just clicks. And you're like, oh my God, that's what they've been building up to this whole time. That makes so much sense. So I love that approach to this. You take 2 stories that seem entirely different from each other, and you just blend them together in this way that they perfectly intermix later on in the movie. So like I said, I could almost see this being my number 1 because it was a fantastic watch. I would easily watch this again. But just not quite there for me. So definitely give it a watch, though, if you have not seen Nope. It is such a good movie. Mm. Jordan Peele did a fantastic job of kind of approaching the sci-fi angle.
Mm. My number 1 and number 2 are the same as yours. They're very interchangeable with each other. Mm. And they're both based off of characters we have seen in movies before. However, my number 2 is more of a sequel, and my number 1 is more of a fresh take on the characters. So that's why my number 2 is Top Gun Maverick. After 30 years, Maverick is still pushing the envelope as a top naval aviator, but must confront ghosts of his past when he leads Top Gun's elite graduates on a mission that demands the ultimate sacrifice from those chosen to fly it. An amazing sequel to the 1986 Top Gun. Tom Cruise picks up right where he left off, albeit, almost 25 years later. Yeah. And Miles Teller pulls off one of the biggest surprises of the year in how much he looks like Anthony Edwards' Goose. Mm-hmm. Like, crazy how they not even made him. He could be his son, like in real life. That's how crazy like they looked alike in this movie. Super fun movie. Obviously a huge summer blockbuster. And it's a huge surprise of how good it is, considering how sequels that come out so late from their original movie are usually perceived.
That was the interesting part to me, because
right.
I didn't end up seeing this movie. Mm-hmm. Every single person I talked to about it said it was one of the best movies they saw this year. Hands down. I have not heard a single bad thing about Top Gun Maverick, which is amazing to me, because usually people have at least 1 or 2 things they didn't like about whatever movie, even if they're small gripes. This just, everyone loves it. Everyone
loved it, and as deserved, it is. I think it is up for movie of the best motion picture. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy because you see these old school movies that get a sequel or get remade or get something, and they're awful. Like, they're so bad, and you're just like, why would you make this? The original was so good. The one that comes to mind is Bill and Ted. When they did that Bill and Ted sequel, I think in 2020 it came out. And I was like, why would you mess with Bill and Ted's Great Adventure or whatever? And then they put out that, and I'm just like, And another one, if you want to just keep bringing up Keanu Reeves, is The Matrix, because The Matrix was on my list of movies that I saw this year, and while it's in my top 10, I think it just doesn't compare to how that original Matrix movies were compared to the newest one they just put out, compared to how Top Gun was, compared to how Top Gun Maverick is when it got put out. It's a great story, albeit a little bit similar to Star Wars. And I said that at the time, but fantastic sequel. Tom Cruise is a great actor. Hate him if you want, but he's one of the best actors of our generation, and he can pretty much do anything at this point. Yeah. So
I mean, he's going to space, right? That's his next big thing.
I don't know. Is Scientology allowed in space?
I don't even know. I'd sure hope so. Okay, so number one, I think this one's fairly obvious if you know me as a person. I always love the cool, weird indie film that comes out. And this film, I think, did a great job of capturing something I haven't felt since I first saw La La Land. Because there's certain films that like really blow me away and get me like really fascinated with how they're made and like what went on behind the scenes and like the universe of this. And so my number one is Everything Everywhere All at Once. When an interdimensional rupture unravels reality, an unlikely hero must channel her newfound powers to fight bizarre and bewildering dangers from the multiverse as the fate of the world is in the balance. Like, this was instantaneously, when I was thinking of movies of the year, this was my number one. Like, I didn't even have to think of anything else. I saw this movie at least 3 times in theaters. This was one of the most enjoyable movies I have seen in a very long time that also managed to have a very deep and fascinating story and world built around it. All the while being one of the most unique concepts I have ever seen in my life. That went from having a weird exploration of what it's like to live in a world where you have hot dog hands to exploring like a character's life if she never got married and how that would affect her and like how unhappy she would be as a result of that. All the while you're dealing with this like interdimensional like universe hopping action film that's happening while all this other stuff is going on. So it had such amazing range that I have to give it props there. The action was phenomenal. I think this is one of the best movies I've seen this year in regards to action. Especially the first fight, where what's his name? Oh yeah, Ki Huy Kwan. He played. I think he was in one of the Indiana Jones movies as a kid. Like that was his claim to fame before this movie.
Oh, was he short round?
Yeah, he was short round. Has this amazing fight with a fanny pack that I just like. I can't even describe it without it sounding funny. It's amazing. Like it's genuinely so well shot, so well acted. The action is so clear that you can follow it easily without ever getting lost. Like it speaks for itself, and the rest of the movie is just as good, with blending in the super serious heavy emotional scenes dealing with like generational trauma and like the what could have beens of life, and then blending in like these really funny fights that are happening that also carry a lot of meaning too. The visuals were absolutely impressive. I loved the setting of the film, and I loved how everyone kind of existed within the setting of that film. In particular, there's one character, I can't remember her name. She's essentially the antagonist of the entire film. Somebody who is essentially, what's a way of putting it? Unbound from her universe, so she can become different versions of herself at will. And each time she does that, she has an instantaneous costume change. And all of the costumes are amazing. Like, they all fit her character so well and who she is at that moment. While also being, like, the most absurd things you've ever seen in your entire life. Like, her transforming into, like, a wrestler at one point. Or, like, an old Hollywood actor or a golfer. Just, like, within the span of, like, minutes. It's so cool. And easily one of my favorite performances of the year from Ki Huy Kwan as Raymond, the wife of our main character, Evelyn. For somebody who has not acted in what must be like 40 years or something at this point since the Indiana Jones movie came out, he was amazing.
He hadn't had an acting role since he was a kid.
Don't think he did. I think
If that's true, that's crazy.
It was something like that where he hasn't had performance in such a long time. And to go from that to having such an impressive character that not only had the range to be very funny, kind of like as the sad, kind of pathetic character, to incredibly dramatic when you have when there's, I can't even describe it. There's just so much that's happening here. When there is a scene that literally changes your entire perspective on him as a character, and almost you then like see him differently. Like even watching it like a second and third time, I saw him as a different person than I did when I was first watching the movie. It was amazing. He was so perfectly emotional throughout this entire movie. If he's not up for like best supporting actor or something like that, like it's truly a shame because he really deserves it. He was amazing. But again, there was also not a bad member of that cast. They were all fantastic. Yeah, I mean, again, also it was one of the most unique stories I've ever seen. Like, especially of this year, like exploring one woman's decision and how they affect everyone around her, with the context of like a universe-hopping action movie, is like chef's kiss perfect. Like this is such a fascinating movie. I'll probably be watching it again at some point in the future now that I'm thinking about it again, because I'm sure there's new things I'll find about it watching it like a fourth or fifth time. So yeah, if you have not had a chance to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, just give it a watch. You will not regret it. It is amazing. It is such a good movie.
It's actually, I haven't seen it yet.
It's
one of the movies that when I saw it's one of those movies where I saw the trailer and I was like, I gotta see that movie, and I just never got around to it. And so yeah, I definitely have to at some point.
That is definitely a movie I would recommend paying for. Like it is, I think it is worth it.
My final movie is a movie that I think is the earliest movie on our list in terms of when we saw them on. I think on either of our lists. I don't know. Let me do that. Marcella Shell Banshees.
Because all my movies came out.
No, it's
more than halfway out.
It's definitely the earliest movie because this movie came out in March, and it was The Batman. When a sadistic serial killer begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and questions his family's involvement. Another fantastic thrill ride. This is why I didn't say that The Menu was my top thriller of the year. Because while it's a superhero movie, it's one of the most thrilling movies that I've seen this year and of all time in a superhero movie. Robert Pattinson, for as much shit that he gained for when he got cast as Batman, everyone was like, oh, we're going to have to see the sparkly vampire play Batman. For as much crap as he got for being cast as Bruce Wayne and Batman, he blew away his performance as the titular hero. And bringing in old school Batman concepts like detective work, which we haven't really seen. Like Christian Bale did like detective work occasionally, and he like would piece together a fingerprint through like a bullet fragment. But like actually having Robert Pattinson or Batman face off against the Riddler and solve riddles and like solve puzzles, it just brought me back to like playing Batman Arkham Asylum, like on my 360. It brought me back to like playing that when it came out in 2009 or whenever it came out. And that's the type of Batman that I want to see on screen. That he's the type of Batman I've wanted to see on screen for a really long time. Like you get these other Batman, like Michael Keaton's like the billionaire. He's Bruce Wayne. He's Batman, but he's not. He's Batman. But like, is he Batman? Okay, he's Batman. And then you get like the bottom of the barrel George Clooney, Val Kilmer, and we're not even gonna bring them up. But then you get to Christian Bale, and Christian Bale's like, all right, well, Christian Bale, he kicks ass. He's Batman. He's great. He's a great Batman. He's a good Bruce Wayne. But like, okay, like he's good. And then you get to Ben Affleck, and you're just like, oh, this guy's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you watch his performances and you're just like, this guy's not Batman. Like, this guy's shooting people with guns and stuff. Like, Batman doesn't shoot people with guns and kill people. Like, what is this? DC, what are we doing? And then you get to and I'm blanking on the Matt Reeves. You get to Matt Reeves as Batman, the director of the Batman, and Robert Pattinson, and you're just like, I want an entire world around this character. Like, and apparently there's like a trilogy in the works for Robert Pattinson, and I'm all in for it, because him, Colin Firth as Penguin, which I didn't even realize until like 3 days later that was Colin Firth, with how much like makeup and fat suit he had on. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner, or not, whatever he is, Detective Gordon at the time. Scar or Jeremy Irons as Alfred. Like, all those actors put in all like their heart, and even the guy who plays Riddler, which like he's not even a known actor. What is his name? Paul Dano. I don't forgot his name.
Yeah.
Oh no, Jeremy Irons didn't play Alfred. That's my mistake. That was Bruce Wayne's Alfred. Andy Serkis played Alfred in this movie, which was even a better like choice for Alfred. But yeah, Paul Dano in his portrayal as the Riddler, which like when you think of the Riddler for Batman, you think of Jim Carrey, and just some like he's wearing green tights and he's got question marks all over him. Mm-hmm. This guy, and like all I wanted was like dark, gritty Batman. These Batman's rogue of villains are supposed to be dark and murderous, and they're not supposed to be funny and comical and like, no, they're supposed to be like killing people. And this, from the get-go, one of the best scenes of 2022 was the Riddler's introduction, when you have his first victim standing in front of a TV in the pitch black dark, and he moves away and you just see darkness behind him and lightning flashes and you see just the silhouette of the Riddler. And you're just like, oh my God, this is going to be one of those types of movies. Fantastic. I'm probably going to watch it again tonight because I'm so amped up talking about it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since the summer. So like, I really want to go back and watch this movie. Tons of characters in it too. Catwoman's in it. Carmine Falcone's in it. Penguin's in it. Riddler's in it. So many rogue gallery, and like apparently there's going to be more villains introduced later on through the trilogy. But my number one movie this year, which apparently my number one movie last year was also a superhero movie, but hey, you know, I like what I like.
We have types.
But this, not just because it's a superhero movie, but because I finally got to see what I wanted Batman to be for so long on the big screen. And the fact that it was, again, another thrill ride. And it was a long movie. If I remember correctly, it was fairly long. Almost 3 hours. It didn't feel like 3 hours. It didn't feel like it could, like, just like Black Panther, it didn't feel like it could end at any point in time. It kept me intrigued and it kept me involved in the movie. And that's why it is the number one movie for me.
And I think that rounds out our list of movies for 2022. We don't have Pilot Wings this week. I also don't think we're going to do the IMDb movies this week. And that's because I think me and Andrew discussed this beforehand. I think next week I want to do our worst of 2022 episodes.
Speaking of...
Well, specifically, because we were looking at the movies we saw this year. I did not personally realize how many absolute stinkers I saw. There were a lot of bad ones, and I kind of want to talk about them.
I was looking at your list, like, because I was typing up my synopsises when you were like putting in order of like the movies that you saw.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at some of the movies that are in your bottom, and are some of the movies that are not in your bottom.
We'll get to why I put them there. This is also a rough list I did. I'm gonna really think about it in the coming week, and I'm gonna settle on what I think my bottom 5 are. But there's also I'll go into my mental process for that next week.
I just want to know, because I see I'm looking at your bottom 5, and then I'm looking at your bottom 10.
Don't spoil any of them.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your bottom 5. Now, in your bottom, let's take out.
I will say big thing
let's take
about
let's take out Stranger Things, because those are TV shows. But
yeah.
in your bottom 10, which obviously I'm not going to spoil anything, start here.
Yeah.
Is there anything in those first 5 that you could see in your bottom 5?
So the specific reason why I have those in like we're talking about basically from there to like about here, right? Talking in that little middle range.
Yes.
The reason why those are there, honestly, they were so forgettable. I forgot I saw them.
Okay.
They were just, I didn't even remember seeing them. Like,
because I'll tell you one thing.
They're not all terrible. There's one
This is the one that surprises me the most.
That one, it's honestly because I just forgot about it.
You were so against it when you saw it, and I liked it because
who knows? I might change that in the coming week. I might rethink this.
That's why I didn't want to bring it up, because I don't want you to change your mind.
What the bottom 5 are?
Yeah, those are some
garbage
gross
movies.
Funny enough,
yeah.
One of the ones that you and I both saw, one of them is in your bottom 5. That one is not in my bottom 5.
Really?
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about. That movie is awful. How is that not there?
It might get there. I don't know.
That was atrocious.
I've got to look at my list again. But that one's not in there at the moment.
That is wild to me. Because honestly, that one should be... I thought that one was going to be higher for me, but I forgot about the other 2 that are down there. Because those ones were particularly bad. But we'll get into that next week, because I have some passionate thoughts about those movies.
The other thing I want to bring up, because we were talking about award shows.
Yes.
And I don't know what you're doing for the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
But the Golden Globes are on Tuesday.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to do a pre-Golden Globe show and talk about the nominees.
We could.
Or if you want to wait for the Oscars. Because the Oscars, I think, are in February.
I think we should wait for the Oscars. We should release a video before that, talking about our pitches for whatever. I think that'd be a fun little video. The Oscars are in March. Yeah, we should wait for the Oscars, I think.
And the Oscars, the nominees, I don't think have been announced yet for the Oscars.
And we can talk about that in a future video, I think. Yeah. I think that's fair to approach once we get closer to it.
Because I was looking at Golden Globes and
I also think it'd be fun. I don't know about you. Instead of going based off of their...
Michelle Yeoh is nominated for actress in a musical comedy motion picture.
Mm-hmm. I assume she was the lead in Everything Everywhere All at Once, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. She was amazing.
Hugh Kwan is nominated for supporting actor.
Let's go! As he should be.
Yeah.
He was so good.
So is, funny enough, Brandon Gleeson and Barry Keoghan, both of Banshees of Inisherin.
Interesting.
So I think you saw... Because
I do like the award style movies, the ones that are going to be nominated.
I just want to point, we'll just point this out real quick. Drama motion picture, Top Gun, Avatar, Tar, Fabelmans, and Elvis. You and I have seen one of. Oh, did you see Elvis?
I didn't see Elvis. No, okay. I forgot that was a thing.
So you and I have seen one of those movies each.
Yeah,
Top Gun and Tar.
Those are the top movies of the year, or those dramas?
No, that's drama.
Okay, those are the top movies. That's a weird list.
Musical comedy motion picture, Babylon, Banshees of Inisherin, Triangle of Sadness, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and
everything's gonna win that. There's
Glass Onion, Knives Out Mystery. You've seen 2 of those. I've seen none of them.
I'll probably see Glass Onion too at some point in the future. So.
Oh, I will too. But I just want to point out, I've only seen 1 of the top 5 movies of the year between drama and comedy. And I find that kind of funny because, I guess it's not my type of movies.
Yeah, that's definitely more up my alley.
Yeah,
I like the films that get that critical acclaim. That's definitely more my thing.
Oh, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is actually nominated for Best Animated Picture as well.
That makes sense. Yeah. I don't know how that's gonna fare against Turning Red though. I know people like that movie a lot.
Yeah, that's on your list. It's not in your top 10, I don't think.
That was another movie I forgot I saw.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember seeing it at all. And that was a big factor for these. I needed to remember, actually. They needed to leave an impact on me.
And
if they
you
didn't
liked
leave
it
an impact
better
on
than
me.
Sonic.
Okay, it's a rough list. It's a rough
Which
list.
is
right?
very surprising. It's so
Sonic
low.
should be number 7. I know. All right. Well, why don't we'll wrap it up for this week and prepare for the oncoming storm that is the worst of 2022.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's gonna be. Oh man.
Because like I was saying, we were talking about
I'm
it
gonna be
before
mad.
we started recording, and we were getting some heat on some of the movies that we were remembering that we saw this year. So
Oh, man. I didn't even get to the worst. I'll get into it next week. I'm gonna get too fired up if I start talking about it right now.
ironic.
Yeah, seriously. We'll head for next week. But yeah, Andrew, do you have anything you want to plug before we go?
Yeah. Like, follow, and share, and subscribe.
So you don't miss the worst of 2022.
Yeah, so you don't miss the worst of 2022,
God.
and so you can keep up with us as we move into 2023.
Yes.
And
Watch something good, hopefully.
Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have like a list of 50 movies that we've seen.
Yeah, here's hoping. I'm down. I'm here's hoping. That would be
our
real
list.
fun.
Our list was only like 28.
28. Yeah.
28. 28 movies long or something. So
yeah, we almost got there.
We're about halfway.
Halfway. So we gotta work. We gotta work on that more next year. But
I'm not in school as of a month from now, so
there we go.
Depending on what my schedule looks like, I may have some extra free time.
Here's hoping. But yeah, I don't have anything I want to plug, so I'll just say thank you all for watching The Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And it's been a pleasure having you on. We'll see y'all next time.